to the Breakthrough Room. I'm your host, Christine, where I share transformative moments in life, mindset, and mental well-being. If you are a listener of this podcast, I thank you so much for even clicking on this episode because I have let you down. I have been so inconsistent. I have told you the direction and the plans and the dreams that I had for this thing and haven't done anything. I know. I'm not good at this. I'll get better though. So here's the thing. I am not hoping. I am taking action to getting back on track. Today's actually unplanned, kind of. It's more like I kind of had plans, but like didn't really think I was going to do anything and then didn't really know what I was going to talk about. But here's the thing. I can be the kind of person that will sit on something for a very long time, and either I'm waiting for it to be perfect or I am just waiting to feel inspired. And by inspired, from my definition, is like that fire that drives me, right? I guess that's motivation. Maybe that's more motivation. But truthfully, if I'm being really honest, I have been nudged to get on the mic, to create content, and I've planned and I've drafted and I've planned and drafted and planned and drafted and did nothing with it. So I have been feeling really stuck, which I'm going to go into in this episode. I've been feeling really stuck, and here I am just trying to take action because I have a feeling if I just go out there and do it, the floodgates will just kind of open up for me. I wanted to take this episode to update you on what's been going on with my life and where I've been at as far as the phase I'm in and the struggles I've been having. So let's start off with I'm back at school. I actually can't recall if I even told y'all that I took a break from school. It was kind of a blur. So I'll just kind of backtrack. For anyone that doesn't know, I am in graduate school for clinical mental health counseling. And when my friend was murdered, trigger warning, probably should have started off with that. I couldn't even fathom going to school. I literally did not care. When this happened, not only am I grieving the loss of someone who I spoke to every single day, I'm going to get emotional talking about this, but I also began to question, like, can I even do this? Like, how can I sit in front of someone and help them? What if I help someone like her? Because it's quite frankly not uncommon to be sitting in front of another woman, man, boy, girl, child, whatever, who is dealing with an abusive, life-threatening situation. So it took me some time to get through that. I'm back in school now and I start my practicum in August. So we are back on track. However, everything with my friend is still not easy to get through. I still struggle with grief. My grief looks a lot differently than it did when it first started. So this first year has been a lot of experiencing a lot of firsts without her. There's just so many layers to this grief of losing someone, but then losing someone in a way that's just so can't even fathom. But I'm trying to find ways to make a purpose out of this, or use my purpose from this as well as other different scenarios. And I do feel very confident that part of my gifts and my purpose is to use my voice, not just to share my stories and the things that I've learned, but use my voice to elevate others. And sometimes, well, quite frankly, in the one way I didn't think about elevating others was others of people that are not here to use their voice or just can't use their voice for whatever reason. So with that said, tonight I am actually doing my first guest episode on another podcast speaking about domestic violence. And tomorrow I'm doing my second guest episode again about speaking about domestic violence. I'm not going to share anything yet, but I will share more with you when it comes out. And so be on the lookout. So that's what's going on there since I last spoke to you. Well, that's not even true. Since I last spoke to you, but also since I honestly started this podcast, I have been going through such a life-changing spiritual transformation. But in the last time that I spoke to you, I feel like I've made so many breakthroughs and strides, but this spiritual like journey was, again, if you haven't been following me, was triggered by the biggest depression that I have ever experienced in my life, to the point where I thought I was going crazy. I would say things to myself, and I, at the same time, would be like, that is not my voice. That is not, those are not my words. I did not say that. Like, I was starting to feel crazy when all this was going on. I was praying and talking to God, but my relationship and my understanding with God was still very new. My understanding of how to connect with Him and to hear Him was still very new. And it was still very confused because I was still at the time participating in things that I didn't realize were witchcraft. And now I see how easy I was making myself like leaving myself open to the enemy and to being manipulated and confused. So there was just so much. It's like I was crying out for God, but I fully was also entertaining this other side, and so I was being pulled in multiple directions. But I never gave up, thankfully. However, in the last 6 months in particular, oh, I don't even know why it's 6 months, but it feels like 6 months. I do feel like I've become stronger and stronger in my faith. But here's the thing, and I'm hoping people can relate to that, is that the stronger I get, sometimes the harder it is to not stick to my faith, but keep that faith. And this is how I'm going to try to explain it and what I mean by it. And maybe that's not exactly the right words to use, but this is what I mean by that. So in May, I will be 38 years old. Yes, I'll be 38. I cannot keep track of my age these days. I will be 38 years old. I'm going to have a double check, but I'm more than positive it's 38. I've had a blessed life. I've been able to do a lot of things that I know some of my friends wish they could have done, or other people wish they could have done. And it's beautiful. And I have a great support system as far as my family goes. But for every year that goes by is another reminder of me being single and me not having a family, something that I've deeply desired, honestly, since I was 6 years old. It's so weird that I remember this, but I would pray every night to be a mother and a wife because that's all I ever wanted. And that desire never left me. I didn't really have an age timeline on things, but I definitely thought, oh, sure, by this point in my life, by 35, I'll probably be at least engaged, right? Like, I don't know. I just never thought, as difficult as dating was, I never thought it wouldn't happen for me. And so every year that goes by now, while I am not afraid of aging, let me be very clear, I'm not afraid of aging. I don't really feel older. It becomes harder to keep that faith. And while I feel like in the last 2 years, for the first time in my life, I have said to myself, or have realized that I am someone's wife, right? I've never been able to say that to myself. I've never said that to myself. In fact, I remember I would almost like accept the bare minimum because I was like, whatever scraps someone could give me in a relationship was enough. Because I never really thought of myself as much as I wanted to be a wife. I never thought of myself as someone's wife. I never thought of this idea that I don't belong to anyone, just anyone. So if I'm saying I'm someone's wife, that means my husband's out there. But the more time goes by, the harder it becomes to feel so good about that. And this is where I mean, as I get stronger in my relationship with God, it sometimes becomes harder to feel not good about it like He's doing something, but strong about my own beliefs. If I really allow myself to think about, I'm going to be 38 and I don't even know if I could have kids. And I don't even know when I meet someone if I'll be able to have kids, if that will even be an option for me at that point. If I really allow myself to go down that rabbit hole, I start to feel fear. I start to feel doubt. I start to feel, dare I say, worthless. Like, not worthless in I'm not worthy, but kind of worthless, and maybe worthless is not the right word, but in the sense of like, is it really someone for me? Because I can't figure out what's wrong with me in this situation. Why is it easy for everyone else? Now, comparison, thief of joy, right? But another thing that happens, and this is like, ooh, this is the crazy part, is like when these thoughts happen, what will also trigger is the last person that I really cared for, that I was optimistic about, that the first time in my life, like genuinely trusted. I believed his word. I believed his word would match his action. I believed that we would at least have memories together. Now, maybe it wouldn't be lifelong. And at that point, I wasn't thinking lifelong, but I was very confident in the near future. And the one thing that comes up that haunts me, if I'm being really, really honest, is that I promised this man I would wait for him. And when I go down that road and I think about that promise, I get so angry. But it's not so much him. Like, let me be very, very, very clear. This is not about bashing him. This is not about him. And my content will never be about dividing men and women as far as the dating culture, because I really am sick of seeing that shit all over the internet. This is more of just my own inner experience of my feelings in the relationship and my feelings for this person and my relationship with God and how it relates to this person. But I get angry because I think about how I promised this person. And in the back of my head, I'm almost still holding on to that promise. But yet all this time has gone by and he's never come back. He's never come back. He's made a choice. He's moved on. And I can only assume that because I've never heard from him. And when we had opportunities, because we did, to talk to each other, to have just honest conversation, not necessarily a conversation of like getting back together, but just there were opportunities for closure. There were opportunities for honesty. There was opportunities for an explanation. And instead of having that, for me, I felt dismissed and ultimately ghosted, and just not seen when I really just wanted to be heard and understood and acknowledged. And I get angry. And I get angry that I made a promise that I can't seem to let go, because if I did, I wouldn't be thinking about it, to someone who may not even belong to me. And the part where I talk about the faith is like, if I focus too much on that, I will then just start to doubt God's plan for me. I start to realize, and it takes a lot of journaling, like when I get caught in that moment, I start to realize that I put this idea of this person, this idea of this promise above God's plan. It's like the stronger I get in my understanding of God and the more time I spend with him, it's also very easy for me to have one thought that leads to multiple thoughts that suddenly puts me in this place where I was 2 years ago. I'm saying all that because in trying to understand my relationship with God, in trying to understand who he is, his word, trying to understand the messages that he's giving me, because another thing, oh Lord, let me tell you, he is like, girl, calm down. But I will get a message that I'm fully confident is from him, but because my analytical, controlling ass brain can't just accept that, I will then start to be like, oh, puzzle piece. We're going to piece it all together. What does the end result like? And this is probably why I love psychology and human behavior, because I love putting pieces together. I love understanding why humans do what they do. So my whole point is, as I've tried to get better at trusting and patience and clarity and sitting alone in the silence, and even when I feel like he's not there, trusting he's there, and just having the faith of the size of a mustard seed, as my friend keeps reminding me, I've felt like I couldn't manage everything. Like, truthfully, I felt like I couldn't put out my content. I felt like I couldn't really execute and move forward in the vision that I can see, that I believe has been placed on my heart and put into my mind's eye, because I just couldn't get a grasp of, quite frankly, my own thoughts and how it pertains and how it relates to my relationship with Christ. But isn't that part of the journey? Is feeling like you can't do something, feeling like you don't know how to do something, and he lights it all up for you and he's like, "Don't worry, I got the rest." So that's me. That's me right now. I finally am giving it up and I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to be so perfect, and I'm sometimes a basket case, and I am still grieving the loss of my friend, and I'm quite frankly still grieving the loss of that man and that hope. I'm still having to go through forgiveness of myself and my own actions and doing things that I just didn't realize was in separation of God. I didn't realize that I was putting certain people, certain men, and the idea of relationships before him. So there's just been so much, yet at the same time, slowly taking steps forward. And here I am. That is today's episode. And thank you for letting me share. If you've listened this whole time, I really appreciate that. This is also partially therapeutic for me. And I do have ideas to talk about other different topics, as well as hopes to bring on other people. And I actually really do hope to bring on the male perspective of mental health and relationships and their spiritual journey, because I think it's really important that it's not just important that we understand ourselves, but it's also important that we understand others. And I think in understanding others, we can also understand ourselves. We can also heal ourselves. Healing is not a solo journey. I've learned that along the way. I used to think healing had to be done by myself. And if I couldn't heal myself, if I didn't fully understand everything by myself, then how could I be ready for a relationship? How could I be ready for other people? And that's actually not true. You know, there is a part of our healing journey that is good to have by yourself, because you need that time for yourself with Christ. But then there is that other element of healing through your experiences with people, especially romantic relationships. So I would love to be able to do that one day, and that is where we're heading. And I really appreciate you listening. Now, if you want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram on Chris Santiago. You can also find more information on my thoughts and what I offer on my website at thebreakthroughroomllc.org. You'll find my social media, my blog, my coaching services, which I'm doing life coaching right now. I'm really excited about that. And I also have my own course. So you can check that out, and I will talk to you next week.